And I would now like to welcome our next speaker. So as I said earlier, a number of reports, very interesting reports on dual quality of food. And we've actually got with us today the head of the Fraud Detection and Prevention Unit of the European Commission's JRC. So that's the Joint Research Centre, Franz Ulberth. So he's here with us today to discuss the results of an EU-wide comparison of quality-related characteristics of food products. So welcome, Franz. I'd like to pass you the floor, and as always, do keep your questions coming for Franz for a short Q&A session after the presentation. So Franz, let me pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure of having the opportunity to present the work of the JRC. So let me share my screen, and I hope that technology allows me to do so. Can you already see my screen?
Yes, it's looking good.
That's great. I'm trying to put on the slideshow, which does not work at the moment. Now it should be here. Excellent. So I'm reporting on the results of the work that we have done inside the JRC to help other Commission colleagues, notably the colleagues in DG Just, to address this problematic of dual quality of food. The previous speaker has correctly said that we don't have a legal definition of what constitutes quality of food, and quality as such is always a very hot topic that can be viewed from different angles. If you are an engineer, it is perhaps a little bit easier, because you would say you have reached a certain level of quality if the product conforms with a standard. So if you have defined a standard and the product conforms to a standard, then you have reached a quality level. But defining a standard for food is very, very difficult, because you have so many facets that you need to consider, and this is nearly impossible to have something legally defined as food quality. Okay, but now let me really explain to you what we have done inside the JRC. You see here a little bit of a timeline. It was already mentioned that the topic surfaced in 2017, and then the then President of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, encouraged all Commission services to address this problem, and this is what we have done. We started by saying, if we wish to do some testing, we need to have a harmonized testing methodology that we have developed in close collaboration with the competent authorities in the member states, but also including representatives from the manufacturing industry, from the brand owners, from the retailing industry, and of course also consumer organizations. Then we organized at the end of 2018 this EU-wide survey. I will talk a little bit about that. We published this in June 2019. And then we also saw the need for doing some testing of sensory properties. Unfortunately, in between, we had the COVID pandemic, which slowed down the progress of the project. But a couple of weeks ago, we have published the outcome of the sensory testing of a number of foodstuffs. Now, let me briefly describe this harmonized testing methodology, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction that the SAFE Consortium has already translated what we have done in an own guidance document. And you see here a number of principles that we found very, very important that such a testing protocol shall respect. Extremely important is that everything is done in a transparent manner, in an inclusive manner, and in a fair manner. And of course, very important is that you pay specific attention to comparability. So the old saying in English, you should not compare pears to apples, is extremely important. And we have then used this agreed testing protocol, invited member states to participate. 19 EU member states did so, and we have tested 128 products, 113 branded products, and 15 private labels, which in the end are also brands. And you see, we've put a lot of things into the shopping basket. Yeah, starting with baby food, alcoholic beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, edible oils, savory snacks, spreads, biscuits. So really a very, very wide range of products, which we have then rated. Yeah, and for this rating process, we have used two elements to inform the decision. So we looked at the composition, meaning at the nutrition declaration and the ingredient list, and the front of pack, looking at the motive, what is displayed, the colors, the logos, the fonts, the font size. So in a very comprehensive manner, but of course it was done using, so to speak, human judgment. This was not machine reading or image processing. It was done by, so to speak, the human senses. Those were the two elements that we have graded. And you see here, we have said, if everything is the same, really, meaning the same, we rate it as identical. If it's really different, it is different. There is some gray zone, which we call then similar. And you see here what we have tolerated, yeah, as a similarity, not identical, but at least similar. And that's the outcome of this assessment. So the good news is that approximately 1/3 of the products had the same composition, and the front of pack was almost the same with a little bit of variation. Approximately 27%, so more than 1/4, had a different composition, but the front of pack was also different. So the consumer simply by checking out the product saw that this is a different product. Well, the bad news is that for 9%, so nearly 10%, 1/10, 1 in 10 products, the composition was not the same, so it was different, but this was not reflected on front of pack. And for approximately 1/5, 22% to be concrete, we had a different composition, but the front of pack did not clearly inform about this. So that's the outcome. And it was also explained by the previous speaker that looking very carefully and then using some sort of mathematics, we were not able to find consistent patterns of product differentiation across the union. So there was no clear pattern that this happens more in one part than in the other part. Okay, good. Having said that, we moved forward, and that happened in 2020 by doing sensory testing. Why? Because we know that consumers value sensory properties as, and so to speak, as one of the main determinants when judging quality. And this is also reflected in this special Eurobarometer that was published approximately half a year ago in the autumn of 2020, where 27,000 respondents all over the union said that taste, so sensory property, is one of the most decisive factors for appreciating food. And then, of course, food safety, cost were rated next. But you see here, taste, sensory quality, very, very important. And this is what we then have done. We used the senses and all senses, not just the taste, but also the appearance of food, the smell of food. This is what was used to judge whether is it the same or is it different. Of course, repeating that with all the foods that we have put into the shopping basket of the 2018-19 survey, so 130 products, that would have been a gargantuous job, which is next to impossible to do. So we had to break it down to a smaller number that is manageable. And this is what we did. So we took all the products that were in the shopping basket, and they were found different, irrespective whether the front of pack informed about the difference or not. So products that had a different composition were, so to speak, suggested to the member states, for giving a prioritized list or composing a prioritized list. And this is what they did. So they prioritized which products shall be tested, and the 20 products that came out first on this list were then in the end tested. And you see here the list, the products that were tested. Again, quite a number of soft drinks, carbonated, non-carbonated, sweets, but also baby food, so nutrition formula, and so on and so forth, that were then subjected to sensory testing. And that's quite complicated, because if you say, well, we take 5, 6, 7 products from the same brand purchased in the individual countries, but then to make the comparison of 5, 6, 7 products, sometimes 10 products, that's not that easy. And so we worked out a methodology that allowed to do that. And this methodology is called sorted napping. And in principle, it's quite easy. So you take, and that's the name, you take in principle a tablecloth, so a nap, and on this nap, you place your products and you put them together according to similarity. You see, here in this example, chocolate is tasted and tested. And according to the similarity, you put those products together, and that creates some sort of a pattern. You see in the upper right corner, you have 3 products which are very, very similar. And the one in the lower left corner apparently is quite different from the 3 in the upper right corner. And then you take the coordinates of the individual products and do a lot of statistics to produce an outcome like this. You see here, that in the left panel, here we have tested some sort of iced tea, and you see that here we have 2 groups that are clearly separated. And what makes a product similar to another one? If those ellipses or the circles around the dot that you see here next to the abbreviation of the country, if this overlaps. You see in the example that the Netherlands, the product from the Netherlands, the product from Germany, and the product from Belgium, that they overlap. There is no difference. In the second group, there's also no difference for the products sourced from Slovakia, from Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Slovenia. But you see, those products form 2 different groups. So there is a difference. On the right panel, you see a product where all the circles, ellipses, where they all overlap. So there is no difference among those products. That's the principle of the testing. And now what have we found? We have tested 20 products where we knew that they had a different composition. And indeed, for 10 of them, so 50%, the sensory panel also found sensory differences. And then the larger the difference in composition was, the more likely the sensory panel found a difference, which is quite logical. If you have really a bigger difference in composition, it is quite likely that the product tastes differently. Such differences may affect the purchasing decision of consumers, but it's not only the composition and the sensory perception that have an influence on the purchasing decision. Also very clear. The sensory differences, as in the pure label comparison exercise that we did in 2018, 2019, again, here we have not found a consistent geographical pattern. And one thing is very important and shall not be forgotten. We have tested 20 products, which is a relatively low number, but we have to understand that doing such tests is quite challenging. It's not that easy. So we have only tested 20 products. We have found 10 out of the 20 were different. But now translating that for the for the thousands of products that we have on the European internal market is not appropriate. So we should not generalize the outcome by saying 50% of the products are in general different. Now, let me finish with a little bit an outlook. We have been asked by the European Parliament in the frame of a pilot action to extend the harmonized testing methodology to other consumer products, in particular to the sector of household chemicals and personal care products. So detergents, body lotion, shampoo, things like that. So in the first step, we need to see whether the methodology that we have developed for food can be extended to the non-food sector. And okay, the non-food sector we have narrowed down, so we are not testing I don't know, cell phones or car tires. That's a little bit too broad, so we have narrowed it down. Then once we have an agreed testing methodology, we believe that shouldn't be that difficult to modify the methodology. We will apply it in an EU-wide survey, as we did with food. So that's the one pillar of the research that we are doing now. And the second pillar is, and that's very interesting, I think that's very interesting. We are looking into the feasibility, and I wish to stress the word feasibility, of creating a monitoring system for a more permanent observation of the market. Clearly, if you do what we did in the past, so you go out to shops, you buy products or you take pictures and you do this comparison, this is very resource intensive. And this is something that you will probably not be able to do every month or 3 times a year. So here we are thinking using modern computer technology, perhaps combined with artificial intelligence, to collect information from the internet, to digest this information by using perhaps artificial intelligence, which could then create a signal that there is an irregularity. And then, of course, the competent authorities in the member states, they need to take up this signal and decide whether to react or not. But this is something then for the competent authorities in the member states. We have at the moment no concrete idea who will be responsible for such a monitoring system. That has to be decided at a later stage. We will not really create the system, so we will not write in computer code, no. We will look into the possibility. What exists? Will it work? Does it work? How could it look like? and who could operate it. I think that's really forward-looking to use digitization for informing competent authorities in the member states that perhaps something needs to be checked, to be controlled in a closer way. That brings me to the end of my presentation, and I hope this was informative, and I'm very happy to take questions. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Franz. Definitely very informative, I would say. I can definitely attest to that. We do have time only for a little couple of questions before we move to the short break. Let me just firstly take one question from the audience, actually something I was wondering myself. Do you know why there were 8 EU member states that decided not to participate? I know you said that all were invited, but only 19 decided to get involved. Why was there a reluctance to engage on this? Maybe lack of resources? Do you have an explanation for this?
Well, we don't. Thank you very much, and this is definitely a very important question. Unfortunately, we don't have clear information on that. We had invited, as I explained, we invited all member states to participate. In the very beginning, there was a lot of enthusiasm by all member states. Yeah, but when it then came to, so to speak, to getting into action, for reasons which are unfortunately not known to me, only 19 member states participated by really doing the data collection in the supermarkets and providing the data. Yeah, this is what I know.
Okay, so maybe moving forward, I'd be interested to know, to try and expand it to as many as possible. I have a question here from the ECHO project. Actually, they're interested to know whether you would be able to share the list of companies that cooperate with you in this research, as it could be useful for the project. Is that a possibility?
Well, I think this information is available in all the reports. We have identified the companies, so we made not the secret out of them. Totally in line with the principles that we designed, this transparency, fairness, give everyone who is participating in this exercise a voice. We always invited, and also for the sensory testing, we always invited the brain donor to give us feedback on the outcome of the testing, to identify potential reasons why we have seen a difference for a certain member state. And whenever we have received this feedback, we have always included the feedback really by copy-paste, without doing any editing, copy-pasting it into, so to speak, this result sheet, and everyone can check out and see what they have responded.
Excellent, great that you're open to that. I think actually they were asking whether you would be able to share specific contacts from companies. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, in principle, yes, but we have GDPR rules, and with GDPR, it is not that easy to say, well, I'm sharing contacts.
Sure. Okay, well, it's still great that the list is available for them. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that. Okay, so that's the last question I have for you. Thank you very much for your presentation.